a very interesting contribution can be seen here, which we can say as indirect, because when we say what is the impact of sourcing on financial performance, we can do number crunching and we can see how it has increased the ROA, how effort is required more in sales, right? So we can directly see the impact. But what are the indirect contributions, right? Those are also very interesting, right? So one thing is, it is a information source, right? So many a times when we will talk about supply management, suppliers, like, you might get confused, like, am I talking about suppliers or I am talking about supply management function in an organization, right? So let's make it clear, or I would keep on making this clear throughout the lecture. This is my supplier, okay, and the supplier is supplying to an organization, right, which has, let's say, a section, a department called supply management, okay. So far we have been discussing whatever efforts this function, activities under supply management they carry out, how it is impacting this organization's performance, okay. They have to deal with day in day out with the suppliers, right. So now we are saying that the supply management function, when it deals with the suppliers, right, for all the transactions and activities, how it is impacting the organizational performance. So what are the indirect contributions we do get, right? So mind it, this supplier belongs to an organization. When this supplier would come to this organization to offer a deal, to offer a product, right, this supplier will come to which department? Purchasing, procurement or supply, right? Now this, what section, function this person or entity would hold in his or her organization? Give a thought. Sales and marketing, right? Now you see here, this person or entity which would come to bring offers, right, to the supply management function, they would be from the sales and marketing, correct? So now sales and marketing department, right? Now you see here, one function dealing with other function of an organization, how this transactions, right, would be a source of good information, okay. Because now whatever meetings, it's not only one supplier, the supply management has to deal with number of suppliers day in day out, right? And you see that these transactions, these dealings can create a very good information source, isn't it, right? Because every supplier will bring new offerings, we would get updated, what are the products in the market, at what prices, we would get updated about the prices, what are their marketing strategies, even other functions in this organization will be benefited, right? What other marketing, sales, their strategies are, that all these things are very good information source for the supply management function of an organization and the overall organization, okay. So one has to really see how to leverage on this information source. Another important thing is we have effect of this sourcing on the organizational risk and image. Can you recall some of the recalls? Can you recall the recalls which have happened in the past? Right? Can you use mic, to answer? So, we have seen many auto companies, right? They have faced recalls, right, in the past. Do you think, the fault of most of the recalls were lying at those auto giants' premises? That means whether the fault which has caused this recalls or like faulty operations, whether the source was lying due to assembly or in the auto giants, where it was? Yeah, it was lying at some of the suppliers. Sometimes it was the fault of brake assembly, sometimes it was the fault of steering assembly, right? So, the fault has happened at supplier side, but who has recalled? Right, main auto giants, right? Whose reputation was at risk? Auto giants, right? Whose image was reflected due to recalls? This is auto giants, right? So, who has to contribute, right, to manage or to prevent such situation to happen, right? Can we now close this puzzle? Okay. So, the idea is that many a times, like, the reputation and the image of an organization, right, it is affected by sometimes rework, sometimes recall, right, and the source of the fault and the cause lies at the supplier premises. It can be tier 1 supplier, it can be tier 2, it can be tier 3 supplier, okay, but it affects the reputation and image of the maybe original equipment manufacturer or the ultimate giant, right, auto giant, right. So, this is very important, right, for the supply management function, right, how they can be aware of possible supply disruptions which can happen, any potential financial, operational or reputation risks which a company can face, right, because of not acceptable practices at supplier, right. If we see that, we will discuss again, right. So, but briefly I would like to state here, in the past many globally renowned companies, right, they were boycotted for their products, right, because those companies suppliers were not following ethical practices, right. Many suppliers were involved in either child labor, right, or compromising on safety regulations or norms. Because of that, many globally renowned companies were like, in the not so good news, right, in the past, okay. So, this in nutshell, we want to say that this is the responsibility of supply management to ensure how to manage such risks, okay. Other thing is supply management holds good responsibility on managing efficiency, right. If I suppose if I am a supply management department person, I have ordered something, thinking that it would be good for, let's say, production, okay. I have ordered, I've got the supply, right, but the whether that product is good or not, it would be reflected only when manufacturing would start, conversion will start, when processing will start, and after the processing only it would be realized that the part product was of not right standards, right. When we would see the damage in terms of rework, right, lot of rework. So, this is like just a scenario where it would impact the efficiency, okay. So, any wrong decision by supply management would reflect in terms of increase in cost. What cost? If we have to rework, the cost of rework, if you have to correct the fault, the cost to correct, the extra cost of correcting, extra cost of labor, right, to correct it, okay. So, it would result in inefficiencies in the system, and if any wrong decision would lead to complete stoppage of production, right, that would lead to another loss of no work, right. So, this is the onus is on supply management function to ensure efficiency of whole organization performance, and similar thing happens if we would say complete supply chain. As a supply management function, I must keep evaluating, monitoring all the suppliers, not only immediate suppliers, that is tier 1 supplier, but tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, because in the last session we have learned that what is the strength of supply chain? The weakest link. So, if any supplier is a weakest link, it will have a cascading effect in the whole supply chain. Ultimately, it is going to affect the customer satisfaction of this organization, right. Supply management organization. Part of risk is transferred to whom? Supplier. I would say that it is a strategy to manage the risk. If supply management function is proactive enough, they would keep monitoring, evaluating the supplier in a continuous manner, we can actually prevent certain risky situations, right. So, this is the moral of this discussion, okay. So, because I know if I won't do it as supply manager, I am going to affect my customer satisfaction, right. My customer would be affected no matter wherever disruption has happened in the supply chain, okay. So, these are certain indirect contributions of supply, right. So, what can be a good recipe for supply management function, right. We should have good human resources here. So, when we say human resources, means the employees or the job description or the work force which would be employed in supply management function, right. That should be having holistic understanding of supply chain, right, and how to form relationships with suppliers and within organization with other functions of organizations, be aware of business models, right, be aware of electronic business systems, because as we would proceed in the course, we would see what are the steps and processes involved and how we can make it more and more tech oriented, more and more automate them, right. Fact based decision making with advanced cost price management, right. The knowledge of cost price management is very essential, right. Otherwise, that is also a big contribution of efficiency management, okay. If I am a supply management function, I should keep an eye on how prices are doing, right. whether it is London exchange or your own country's exchange, how it is behaving, what is the past trend, all those things like, are the key traits, which, current supply management function are looking for. Organizational design, whether the purchasing decisions would be centrally led, whether they will be coordinated by single department, right? These days you name all the organizations, they are actually located globally, right? They have offices everywhere in the world, right? But even if it is within a country, managing many offices, managing many manufacturing plants within a country is difficult. How purchasing decisions are made? Suppose I am saying I have a plant in Chennai, okay, and I have a plant in North India, Haridwar, and one in Gujarat, right? Now my suppliers, even suppliers of some parts are located all across India. Should I have an organizational design of purchasing, that is whether I should choose one supplier and instruct that supplier, or maybe centralized purchasing, that is would command that all the other manufacturing plants should also buy from that supplier, right? The same time, someone of you would get up and would say, look, one plant in Chennai, one in North India, Haridwar, Chennai in South India, Haridwar, North India, and one in Gujarat, like, in Western India. And if, supplier is, look, if I'm choosing a supplier which is closer to South India, right? Why we have to go for the same suppliers for the manufacturing plant in West and in North? Why to increase the logistics cost, right? One may question that, right? So, to answer this question, we would explore what is the right organizational design, for purchasing and sourcing decisions, right? But one should be aware of what are the options and alternatives of organizational designs are there, whether centralized purchasing, decentralized purchasing, or what other models we have to work for. Cross-functional teams, right? Supply management function has to work with all business functions. IT, right? For monitoring your suppliers continuously, one should have, good command on real time and shared IT systems, awareness of supply chain planning and execution systems, right? So, just like demand analytics, there is a need of acquiring knowledge on supply analytics also, okay? So, how we would decide how to do the right sizing of suppliers, how many suppliers are optimal, okay? So, that, and then, e-reverse auctions. These days, when you ask for some product, there would be hundreds and hundreds of suppliers, and how to choose from them, right? These days we run reverse auctions, right? So, to have best price, and if this reverse auctions are run through internet or using some software, we call them e-reverse auctions, okay? One should have good command of that, right? If, we want to see that, what is required in a good supply management function, and then definitely what for all these efforts are happening, we must have good measurement system, right? Select measurement, definitionally efficiency oriented, effectiveness oriented, set targets, must be aligned with business goal. That's what we would learn in the next session. So, use data from relevant visible sources, sensors, right? Assign ownership and accountability. These days, if I want to buy products, let's say some FMCG company, they are procuring many food products from various suppliers, say milk, say cheese, those have to be temperature controlled, right? When such material would touch any FMCG retailer, how would that FMCG company assure that the supplier has sent all the products at the optimum temperature throughout the journey, right? Throughout the travel. How would you ensure? Cold supply chain IoT, you would install some sensors, so that you can have a real time temperature of, the material, right? This is just an example of food. It can be anything. So many a times, like, when some products are ordered in bulk, there are theft cases on route, right? How one can avoid that? Okay. So that also, like, how we can utilize data, sensors, IoT, right, to tackle the real time this thing, and ownership and accountability. Okay, this is very important, right? Who is the authority to sign the contracts with supplier? Who would take the onus if something goes wrong, right? Those or should be all such things should be uh, documented and signed by a right authority. Okay, so this is about like enabling a good supply management function more from the strategic point of view. Definitely we have to run it using our business requirements, means aligned with the real time or actual goals of overall organization, right? So this is all about, the impact of supply management activities on the organization performance, maybe in terms of direct and indirect. There is also very interesting point which was there in the, it can be direct measurement, like on inventory. There is some initiative called vendor managed inventory, right, which is popularly known as VMI. What do we mean by vendor managed inventory? The name itself says vendor is managing inventory, right? Whenever, we go for shopping in FMCG or any store, you might have seen, like, sometimes many people, they don't belong to that retail, they are not employees of that retail store where we visit, but you would be seeing they would be filling the aisles with their own product. Those are the vendors of, those retail stores, right? They take the responsibility of when to replenish the product, with how much inventory, right? When to take out the expired products, right? That means these days, the decisions of managing inventory is shifting to the vendors. Why so? Any guesses? Reduce inventory cost. How this will reduce the inventory cost when vendor will manage the inventory? We don't need to store inventory, we don't need to keep inventory. This is now vendor's responsibility to manage the inventory, right? So this is like, because inventory in any form, whether work in progress, raw material or finished good, unless or until it is bought by the end consumer, that inventory is a tied up capital for you, for an organization. Okay, again it's a financial impact. Okay, one has to liquidate it as soon as possible or shift the responsibility to vendor, right? So what happens with vendor managed inventory? Many a times within vendor managed inventory initiative, right? So vendor owns the responsibility of inventory till it is either sold to the end consumer or till it reaches to the shelf of the retail store, right? So even if the inventory is lying in the storehouse of retailer, the owners and responsibility of inventory lies with the vendor. Okay, so this is the advantage of, like, reducing your inventory related cost and the tied up capital. inventory. Okay, so with this, we have completed our session on how it is impacting the organization. Okay, now next we will have supply objectives. What are the objectives with which the supply management has to function?